Go ahead.
All right, here we go. Tell me when to stop. Good grief. So in preparation for the next subclass challenge, I've been making myself practice with Crucible builds I don't normally use, top of that list being weavewalk. I have learned so much in just a week of using this thing that I feel like I actually need to give commentary this time so you can really understand why it is so good against specifically Prismatic Hunter. So here's the elevator pitch. If you didn't know, Prism Hunter is completely dominating the sandbox right now with its typical build of swarm grenades, smoke bombs, strand clones, and other things. And if you've played Crucible lately, you're probably not surprised to hear that Prism Hunter hit 42% usage in Trials last weekend, which, if you're wondering, is more than the combined usage of Void Titan, Solar Warlock, Prism Warlock, and Prism Titan. Oh, and also Broodweaver, who I guess was so unpopular that the cool kids just crop him out of their photos now. But other than bringing up painful memories of high school, let me show you what this class can really do. So like you saw in the intro, swarm grenades literally do not damage you. The single projectiles are too weak to count even as one damage while you're in weavewalk, and in something like Trials you can just go around like a vacuum cleaner and suck all these things up to give your team a huge advantage. You do still get stacks of Scorch, and it can ignite you if you take too many swarms at once, which is adorable, but you won't take any DOT from Scorch until you break the weave, which gives you plenty of time to get to safety or just wait for the Scorch to wear off. Smoke bombs, on the other hand, will do a bit on the detonation, but again, nothing from the DOT, and while the combined effects of infinite smoke bombs and swarm grenades at once can actually start to do damage, it is still, hilariously, not enough to stop your health regen.
I'm regenerating health, dude. Stop.
As for strand clones, the explosion and their threadlings are enough to move the health bar a little, but they don't apply debuffs and the damage is pretty negligible. And as for the super, if you get hit directly or take multiple hits from the swirl, then you will die, but if you keep moving, you can actually tank a hit. And even though Needle Storm is a steaming pile of dog shit, because the Storm's Edge animation holds the hunter in place for a few seconds, you actually do have a winning matchup there if you can time it right. So that's all the ways you can handle the entire Prismatic Hunter neutral game at the cost of some melee energy, and I haven't even started on all the other cool shit this subclass can do. So before we get into builds and how to get the most out of this Broodweaver setup, I want to really quickly go over the main weaknesses of weavewalk. There are 3 major things that exist to keep weavewalk in check, and if you're going to go try it out yourself, it's important to keep these things in mind. The first and most obvious thing is the melee energy cost. Managing your remaining needle energy between fights is crucial to get the most out of weavewalk, and keep in mind that you need at least 1 full charge up in order to activate it. This means that sometimes the right decision is to not weavewalk where you normally would, so you can preserve that last melee charge for when you really need it.
Need I say more?
Yes. The second main weakness to keep in mind are the debuffs that will fully cancel your weavewalk, namely Suppress, Suspend, and Freeze, which by the way are all things Prismatic Hunter can't do in their neutral game unless you like stand in a dusk field for 10 seconds, but definitely keep an eye out for classes like Sentinel, Threadrunner, and Shadebinder or Prism Warlock, and also weapons like Cryosthesia or the real hard counter Wicked Implement. You're not going to see it very much, but if you do, be careful.
He's on point, still in there.
And finally, the third drawback, which is probably the hardest to get used to when you first start weaving, is just that you can't shoot back. I know it sounds dumb, but in something like Trials, it's really important to stay active in fights, doing damage, shooting with your team, controlling areas, stuff like that. And since weavewalk takes away your ability to shoot, it can be pretty difficult to figure out how to really work it into your fights in a fluid way. Like last weekend was my first time ever taking weavewalk into Trials, and even though I had one of my best overall performances, I also set a new personal record for losing streaks. So if you decide to take this for a spin yourself, just keep in mind it's a very different playstyle than what you're probably used to, and don't get discouraged because there's definitely a bit of a learning curve. And with that, let's get into builds. The first thing I looked at was actually Rain of Fire. Because weavewalk counts as an air dodge, you do get that free reload on activation, and if you like fusion rifles, there's definitely some good play potential here. But overall, I'm not much of a VOOP enjoyer nowadays, and I didn't feel like the instant reload was enough to justify the exotic slot. But if you like fusions, then this might be the build for you. I'll link a CoolGuy video in the description where he does a deep dive on this exact setup if you're interested. And the second thing I looked at was Eye of Another World for that additional melee regeneration. Now this is definitely a good option, especially if you're just getting into weavewalk and really want to have it up as much as possible. And the boost to grenade and rift regeneration is also really nice to have. But for me, I didn't really feel like I was short on melee charges without Eye, so long as I had 10 strength, especially in round-based game types like Trials where there's a good amount of downtime to build that energy back up. So even though Eye of Another World is definitely a real option, I was hoping to find something that would really take weavewalk to the next level. And once I tried exotic number 3, there was just no going back for me, because that exotic was, and don't roll your eyes, transversive steps. These things were a game changer for weavewalk. I cannot emphasize this enough. And yes, part of that is because it's a slide boost exotic, and transversives are good with basically anything that isn't Hawkmoon. But the interactions between transversives and weavewalk specifically unlocked a new level of aggressive play potential that just wasn't there for me before. Not only do you keep the transversive slide boost and improved warlock skating while weaving, but because weavewalk is an air dodge that keeps you afloat for a second, mouse and keyboard players can combo scroll wheel boosts into weavewalk activations for an extended boost, and being able to enter or exit the weave while skating like this is an immense help in using weavewalk fluidly mid-fight. Okay, so for the rest of the build, since you make threadlings in weavewalk, I think Weaver's Call to launch them all at once is the obvious aspect pairing. Players will oftentimes try to chase you down while you're weaving to catch you when you deactivate, and turning the tables on them by shoving 8 threadlings down their throat is remarkably effective. And even though I opt for grapple so I can rush people when they're out of abilities, you make so many threadlings with this that Thread of Evolution is kind of a must-have fragment. And since you should always have 10 strength with weavewalk, Thread of Generation is also really nice to make up for the stats that you aren't putting into discipline. The other 2 fragments aren't as important. I like Thread of Isolation right now because it helps with making tangles, but you can really just go for stats here if you want. And speaking of tangles, the Threaded Blast artifact perk is broken in PvP right now, to the point where if you're using strand abilities, it's borderline throwing to not also have a strand weapon on. I recommend a hand cannon so you can break tangles in one bullet, pick up those one taps. And finally, I put on a shotgun because I felt it had the best play potential when paired with transversives and weavewalk.
Just still capping.
On a body blow.
Dude, that is... Dude, I'm stuck on him while he's a little weak. On you. Our teammate's getting flanked right now.
I'm trying to eat these for you. I'm just gonna body block. I have a lot of melee.
I'm in a rift. I'm in a rift. I'm gonna throw a suppressor in
We
close.
got it. We're good.
No tags. What the hell? He moved left. He's running. He's running.
I'm just getting aped by all of them right now. I'm gonna leave.
Sick weave walk actually. He's halfway. He's halfway.
I'm not registering back here. Got him.
Okay, that was
Are you
actually
sold on it yet or what?
wild,
You
bro.
rage quit.
That was actually, yeah, I would have too. Oh my god, how did you? All 3 were chasing.
I didn't even
bro.
take half health, man.
So yeah, that's the video. If you're looking for a break from the Prismatic Hunter spam, you should probably give this a try. It has definitely made Crucible more bearable for me, and to be honest, until some substantial changes roll out, I don't think I'll be switching off of it. If you're watching this video when it comes out, then there's still some time to get in on our fundraiser for the Bungie Foundation. We've already passed our initial donation goal, so I'll be doing a hellish Trials challenge on this channel in the next couple weeks. But we do have a stretch goal of doing a live stream subclass gauntlet, so if you want to get in on that and pick up some cool charity emblems while you're at it, then that link is in the description, and thank you very much. No Aspect Challenge is probably up next on this channel, so stay tuned for that, and yeah, goodbye.
Dude,
Oh, I won. I thought he would cap.
what?
That's crazy.